Telegram CEO has been arrested. Firefox is improving the privacy for its users. Zitter/X/Twitter is officially banned in Brazil, as well as the VPNs to circumvent it, sort of. Welcome to Surveillance Report 193, where we are dedicated to keeping you private and secure with the latest news from the past week. I am Nathan from The New Oil.
And I'm Henry from Techlore.
All right, this week's promo segment is different. We have our first sponsor, JMP.Chat. A lot of you guys know JMP.Chat. I had the pleasure of testing it out while we were in talks with them, and I was really blown away. So for those of you who don't know, JMP is a fully FOSS service. It's free and open source from top to bottom, or at least as much as possible. And they provide phone numbers, but not just phone numbers. It's not just voice over IP. They have SMS, they have MMS, they have short codes. You can do everything that you can do with a normal number. It uses standard technology, so you can use multiple different apps that are available on multiple operating systems and devices. Officially, they do sponsor the Chiagram app on Android. It is the best place to start for most people, again, especially if you're on Android. They offer pay-as-you-go data that respects your privacy as an option that's available, and they have an eSIM adapter now. This allows anyone to use an eSIM on any device using only FOSS technology. You can move eSIMs between devices. Thank you so much to JMP.Chat for sponsoring us. We're super excited to be working with them. Again, they're really well known in the privacy community, and you guys should definitely support us by supporting them and making yourself more private, and go check them out if you have not. With that, we'll jump into the highlight story. So a lot of you guys have already heard this one. I saw some of you guys leaving comments last week. Just a reminder, we record Friday nights. It is Friday night as we're recording this, and this happened Saturday night, so that's why it wasn't in the episode. But the French have arrested the founder of Telegram, Pavel Durov. Since this particular article that we're quoting, they've actually have officially filed charges accusing him of aiding and abetting organized crime or something like that. Probably a few other things sprinkled in there, because that's usually how these things tend to go. They say that he's enabled terrorism, fraud, money laundering, and crime against children, all of it due to the near total lack of moderation on Telegram. So according to French authorities, thanks to its quote-unquote encryption and support for crypto, Telegram has become the new top tool for organized crime. So the article kind of explains a lot about Telegram, the history of Telegram, how it's got like, I think it's almost 1 billion users now, right? Or something like that. This last part of the article I did think was interesting though. Apparently Russia still uses Telegram, and this arrest has led to a lot of panic because they're worried that it might reveal secrets since the Russian military uses it. At this time, obviously this is an unfolding situation. Legal cases take years and years to play out. I think the last I heard, he has been released, but he has been ordered not to leave France. That's kind of where we stand now. He's been charged. As far as the analysis portion of this goes, I actually don't know how I feel about this, because we're very open that we have a low opinion of Telegram. We don't consider it an encrypted messenger, and we don't think anyone should. It should be considered more of a social media. The only type of encrypted chat you can have on Telegram is one-to-one chats on mobile devices. You can't have group chats encrypted. You can't have desktop chats encrypted. And you can say what you want about Signal, but at least with Signal, you can like sign up and then throw away your phone and keep using it. You can't do that with Telegram. And I've always found that kind of sus. That said, I guess on principle, I should be opposed to this, but at the same time, like, I guess to me, this just shows that Telegram was kind of being a bulletproof service, which is, for those who don't know, a bulletproof service is like an email provider or a VPN, or not so much VPN, more like cloud storage, somebody who says we will not comply with law enforcement requests. And that's why we kind of always criticize whenever there's a story like Proton Mail complying with a court order. If you don't comply, you will be shut down. Like, he's a billionaire who's been arrested. I think we can all count on one hand how many times that's happened in the past. Not to victim blame here, but I think this shows why it's important to encrypt things, because, and obviously we're still seeing this attack play out, but with services like Signal, for example, or Matrix, at least they can make the argument that everything is encrypted. We can't weaken the encryption of our users, and we can't comply with this lawful order because we don't have any access to the data. Telegram can't make those sort of claims, in my opinion. He doesn't have a lot of things he can hide behind as a defense. And then the last thing I guess I wanted to hit on is, even if you put all that aside, I don't really understand why... And I'm sorry, I'm going to drive by the crypto people here a little bit. I don't understand why all the crypto people flock to Telegram when Telegram is like the antithesis of everything you believe in. It's not decentralized. It's not fully open source. It's not encrypted. Y'all should be looking for things like, if you really want decentralized, like Session, SimpleX, Matrix. Like, these are things that are significantly more encrypted and more private and more decentralized I guess I'm open to the idea that there's an argument for why I should be upset about this, but if I'm being 100% honest, I'm finding a hard time understanding why I should be upset about this.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts here. Speaking of crypto, there was a recent crypto Telegram group that I joined, and there were people spreading information about Signal on there. Like, Signal, we don't trust Signal because XYZ. And it's like, you guys realize you're using a group chat that doesn't even support end-to-end encryption. Why do you have any position to try to criticize a different messenger that at minimum has end-to-end encryption for group chats? Not just as an option. Again, it's just a default. That's just the only way to do it. So I think that the types of arguments that you have between Telegram and other messengers, it's just not even on the same playing field. And I like the way that Jonah put it, which is Telegram is very much like X/Twitter, which is it's kind of a social media platform first, and then it has this hacky end-to-end encryption in DMs that you can opt to use if you want to. But yeah, there's just so many issues with this on Telegram's front, which I'll start with. One, plausible deniability, which is what Nate was referring to, which is the fact that on Signal, just using the tool, everything is end-to-end encrypted. Signal can just equally comply with any kind of court order and say, sure, they can fight the court order, but if they have to hand over data, it's going to be the same data every time, which is 2 metadata data points, which include the last time you were online and the time that your account was created. On Telegram, Telegram has access to most of its users' data unless you opt into secret chats, which means now Telegram has to pretty much decide which orders to comply with and which ones not to comply with. To this day, they have no transparency over this. Their transparency report is empty, and they say they've never complied with the government, despite us having dozens of stories we've covered now, which show governments say that they got data from Telegram. So it's just kind of a joke on a lot of accounts here. There's another layer to this story, which is in France, you actually have to have a license to implement certain types of encryption, which Telegram never filed. And it's supposedly a very easy thing to do that other messengers that roll out their own crypto had to do. But because Telegram uses its own wacky kind of hack together encryption, they actually never got that license, even though they probably should have had one. So that's probably going to be a big part of this case.
I did want to add on to that real quick, just in the interest of fairness. Telegram did several years ago upgrade their encryption to MT Proto, whatever it's called, 2.0. I saw one white paper on it that said that it is reasonably secure, but they also readily admitted that more research is needed, and I've never seen another white paper since.
Well, regardless, I think that's still missing the point because it's not a standardized encryption protocol, which means that by French law, they need to have a license to use it. I have 2 more things. I'm almost done. Speaking to what you said with just the crypto people really liking Telegram and how this has nothing to do with their kind of ideals, I'm going to read a quote. I posted this on the Techlore socials. Their worry is that Durov may hand over encryption keys to the French authorities, allowing access to the platform and any communications that users thought was encrypted. Why would you ever use a platform where a single person getting arrested means that all of your messages can now fall into the hands of authorities, even if you're not in a criminal case or you didn't do anything wrong? Why was that ever a smart idea? And, I do get really upset because like Nate said, we've always been very critical of Telegram. That's one that pretty much most people in the privacy and security community are all somewhat in agreement on. But there's still this really weird, dogma that just everything else is bad. We got to use Telegram because free speech. But you know what's better than trusting someone on free speech is having a mathematical platform that actually provides real free speech, that makes it mathematically impossible for somebody to get your messages. That's free speech. And that's better than what Telegram could ever provide its users. Now, in fairness to Telegram, now I'm done complaining. I'm a little concerned because I think this can be a bigger fight. And I do think, I just saw an article in my RSS feed today that people are already kind of speculating if France starts attacking encryption as a whole because of this. And because, sorry, I'm jumping around a lot here. In the interview that Seth did with Andy Yen regarding Proton Wallet, Andy Yen brought up a really good point, which is a very common tactic by governments is to overall weaken privacy and security tools. They'll pick kind of the worst offenders and use those to weaken the overall strategies that people can implement. So for example, Samurai Wallet was doing a lot of things that made them very easy to target. They were openly saying that they could be used for dark markets, etc., and those were used in the court case against them. And because of that court case, now everyone's too scared to implement CoinJoin because that's what Samurai was using. So in a similar vein, because Telegram wasn't really conducting itself properly, France can actually really easily start weaponizing this Telegram case as a way to try to downgrade encryption and possibly even make encryption hard to access for other messengers. So we have to be really careful with this, and there's already some speculation that a lot of messengers might actually have to step in and try to defend Telegram in this case, depending on how far French authorities want to take it. So I think this is a very long fight, and we'll see what happens here. And despite me thinking Telegram is a joke, and I think that Durov felt he was above the law, he already knew he had a warrant out for him before he entered the country, and he still went there anyway, and he got arrested. So I just don't really know what to expect going forward. But I'd say let's try to still have nuance here, even though I myself hate Telegram. In terms of the security it provides its users, there might still be a bigger fight to play going forward.
I think that's the argument I can get behind, is if this is a slippery slope, which I think that is a good argument for, then yeah, we should be concerned about this.
People, use things that are mathematically proven. I'm so tired of seeing people who use Telegram try to smack talk other messengers when they're using one of the worst possible tools for privacy and security to this day. And for the record, I think that you should be very cautious if you're on Telegram, because who knows what the hell's going on behind the scenes right now. For all we know, encryption keys could have already been handed over to French authorities. So just think about that if you're using Telegram, and please migrate to something safer. And they already mentioned a lot of alternatives. And yes, Signal is more safe than Telegram.
I'd also say, and not to be smug, but even if you, I don't understand code and programming and cryptography. So if you're one of those people who's like, oh, it's easy to say, trust the math, blah, blah, blah. Trust the facts and try to put aside your biases. And I've done this with tools that I recommend on the new oil. There's still some tools that I am not personally a fan of, but they objectively have the receipts to back up why they should be trusted, at least for now, and therefore they are listed. I think that's what it's about, because so many of the claims I see made against Signal are either A, outright false, or B, so circumstantial that nobody should be basing something this important off that.
All right, and this week we have our data breaches. Hatelco has notified 726,000 customers of a ransomware data breach. This is a credit union, and this was stolen in a ransom hub, a ransomware attack earlier this year. They're a pretty typical credit union. They are not for profit, but they do most things you'd expect of a credit union. And at the time the incident was disclosed, they had not determined if data had been compromised in the attack, but the investigation revealed that the threat actors stole customer data. The information that was exposed varies per individual and may include their social security number, driver's license numbers, date of births, and email addresses. They are filing with the Maine Attorney General, and they are offering 2 years of credit monitoring through Experian.
Park and Fly notifies 1 million customers of a data breach. This is an off-airport parking service. It says in Canada, but I think I've seen them here in the US too. I could be wrong. But anyways, they offer travelers a convenient place to park their cars when flying out of major airports across the country, and then they will presumably bus you to the actual terminal. The information that has been exposed includes full names, email address, physical address, airplane number, and CAA numbers. Park and Fly says that no financial or payment card information was exposed, and a spokesperson noted that account passwords remain secure.
Black Suit Ransomware stole data from almost 1 million from a software vendor. Young Consulting, now known as Conazur, is an Atlanta-based software solutions provider specializing in employer stop-loss marketplaces, assisting insurance carriers, brokers, and third-party administrators in managing, marketing, underwriting, and administering stop-loss insurance policies. The kind of data that was stolen was full names, social security numbers, date of births, and insurance claim information.
So our last data breach story comes from Durex India. Yes, the condom brand Durex, who spilled customers' private order data. The brand's website spilled customer names, phone numbers, email addresses, shipping addresses, the products ordered, and the amount paid. The exact number of affected customers is not known. So there was a security researcher that found this and reported it. The researcher found evidence that hundreds of people had information exposed because of a lack of proper authentication on its order confirmation page.
All right, this week we don't have company news nor research news, so we're actually skipping all the way to politics, which is kind of crazy. So a researcher has actually been sued for sharing data stolen by ransomware with media. The city's administration announced that no systems had been encrypted, but they were looking into the possibility that sensitive data might have been stolen in the attack.
City of Columbus, sorry, I forgot to include that. It's City of Columbus, and they had, a ransomware attack earlier this year, which we probably covered.
On the same day, Residia ransomware claimed responsibility for the attack, alleging they stole 6.5 terabytes of databases, including employee data, server dumps, city video camera feeds, and other information. On August 8th, after failing to extort the city of Columbus, the threat actors published 45% of stolen data, comprising 260,000 files, exposing much of what they previously claimed to be holding. Now, on the day of the data leak, on the portal that they used on the dark web, Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther stated on local media that the disclosed information was neither valuable nor usable and that the attack had been successfully thwarted. A few hours later, they disputed the mayor's claim that no sensitive or valuable data was exposed by sharing information with the media about what the leaked dataset included. And this person was Connor Goodwolf, who's the researcher. In response to this, on August 12th, the mayor claimed that the exposed data was encrypted or corrupted, so the leak is unusable and should be of no concern to the public. But Goodwolf disputed these claims, sharing samples of the data with the media to illustrate that it contained unencrypted personal data of people in Columbus. Now is where things get fun. So there's a lawsuit that's being submitted by the Columbus City alleging that Goodwolf's conduct of spreading stolen data was both negligent and illegal, resulting in great concern in the community. Moreover, the city alleges that the leaked data isn't accessible to anybody, as Goodwolf stated, as it was published on a platform of limited access requiring knowledge to locate. The complaint notes that Goodwolf's sharing of law enforcement data and the alleged plans to create a website for people to see if their data was exposed interferes with police investigations. In a press conference about the lawsuit, City Attorney Zach Klein says that the lawsuit is not about suppressing free speech, as Goodwolf can still talk about the leak, but is aimed at preventing him from downloading and disseminating the stolen information.
This next story is a brief update. We covered this, I think last week or maybe the week before. At the time, the way the article was worded, we thought this, or at least I thought this was like already had happened, but apparently it was like pending. But now it has officially happened. Brazil has blocked X/Twitter/Zitter after a court order. So on Friday, they said that they were proceeding to suspend access to the social network in the country in compliance with an order from a judge who has been locked in a months-long feud with the billionaire investor. That is Elon Musk. So this is the part that is particularly of interest to us in terms of like privacy and security. To effectively close X in Brazil, telecommunications companies will need to stop carrying the network's traffic while also preventing users of the site from dodging it by concealing their locations with virtual private networks or VPNs. The judge therefore further ordered that those who continue to access X via VPNs will be fined up to 50,000, I'm sorry, Brazilians, I'm going to screw this up, reais?
Reais.
Say again?
Reais.
Reais. Anyways, 50,000 reais, which is about $9,000 per day. Tech giants Apple and Alphabet's Google were also initially instructed in the order to remove the X app from their app stores. Both companies were also ordered to implement so-called anti-VPN obstacles that would make it more difficult for users to open X on phones or tablets, but the judge later reversed that part of the order, saying it would not be needed.
Uber has been fined $324 million over EU drivers' data transfer breach. So this penalty is related to transfers of personal data of drivers out of the European Union to the US, where Uber's main business is located. Essentially, because Uber's main business is in the US, they're still collecting data about EU people within the US. This is the outcome of a series of complaints made by more than 170 Uber drivers in France back in 2021. In January, they were fined 10 million euros for data access rights pertaining to the same complaints, but the new fine announced Monday dwarfs that penalty, landing it a new spot on the list of tech giants stung with the 10 biggest GDPR fines. So the data safeguarding problem relates to U.S. National Security Intelligence Agency surveillance programs, which in the wake of the 2013 disclosures by Edward Snowden, courts in Europe have repeatedly found to pose a risk to the data protection and privacy rights of EU people. This is an issue because GDPR protections are supposed to travel with Europeans' data. So in Uber's case, the Dutch DPA said the data it collected and exported includes sensitive driver information, including account details, taxi licenses, location data, photos, payment details, identity documents, and in some cases, even criminal and medical data of drivers.
A new zero-day attack linked to China's Volt Typhoon. These are Chinese state hackers, and they were exploiting a zero-day Inversa Director, which is a software product used by many internet and IT service providers, so your actual ISP, like Spectrum or Verizon or Google Fiber. Researchers believe that the activity is linked to Volt Typhoon, a Chinese cyber espionage group focused on infiltrating critical U.S. networks and laying the groundwork for the ability to disrupt communications between the U.S. and Asia during any future armed conflict with China.
All right. California has passed a landmark bill requiring easier data sharing opt-outs for consumers. So this was passed on Wednesday, which requires internet browsers and mobile operating systems to allow consumers to easily opt out from the sharing and selling of their private data with websites which use it for targeted advertising. So state residents already have the right to send legally binding opt-out requests, which is established under the pioneering California Consumer Privacy Act, but browsers like Google Chrome, Safari, and Edge, along with Android and iOS, do not currently offer tools for doing so, forcing consumers to download third-party software. The new legislation creates an opt-out preference signal tool, which would let citizens opt out of sharing their information by simply pushing a button to activate the signal on their browser, which would then send out opt-out requests to every website consumers visit by default. Operating systems also would need to feature the toggle, most likely as a system setting, and then the opt-out request will be sent to all covered businesses that a given consumer engages with on the operating system, including apps. Still needs to be signed into law at the time of recording, but it's just formalities at this point, so it seems like pretty much all the tough work is out of the way, and this is likely to be signed into law.
With that, we'll move into free and open source software. We have a lot of news this week, and we're going to start with some good news from Mozilla. Firefox is rolling out total cookie protection by default to more users worldwide. Total cookie protection is Firefox's strongest privacy protection to date, confining cookies to the site where they were created, thus preventing tracking companies from using these cookies to track your browser from site to site. This approach strikes the balance between eliminating the worst privacy properties of third-party cookies, in particular the ability to track you, and allowing those cookies to fulfill their less invasive use cases, such as providing accurate analytics. So they are now making this the default feature for all Firefox desktop users worldwide. And they say our users can look forward to Firefox blocking even more third-party cookies. That's right, we are taking big swings to adopt new cookie partitioning and clearing mechanisms so that users can browse with fewer cookies that won't stick around as long and will result in even better browsing experience. So on the topic of Mozilla, Mozilla is apparently removing a telemetry service called Adjust from the mobile versions of Firefox. This is the summary from the article. Mozilla will soon remove its telemetry service Adjust from the Android and iOS versions of Firefox and Firefox Focus. It appears that the developer was collecting data on the effectiveness of Firefox ad campaigns without disclosing that. Just the last little part of the article that I thought was interesting, a Mozilla watcher named Soren, I'm not even going to pronounce that, H, points out that the release notes of Firefox version 192.02 do not indicate that Adjust was removed.
On the other hand, Brave has laid off 27 employees across different departments. So they confirmed the layoffs, but didn't give more details about the total headcount left, nor the reason for the layoffs. PitchBook estimates that Brave has around 191 employees, working out to Brave cutting about 14% of its staff, but these are all kind of just assumptions. So the new round of job cuts comes about 10 months after the company let go 9% of its workforce in October of 2023, and Brave said the cuts were due to cost management in the challenging economic environment. So the article focuses heavily on Brave's AI investments, basically suggesting that maybe it isn't paying off, or that's what's driving up the costs.
The next few stories are pretty quick, or at least this next one is. So Mullvad has now officially released quantum-resistant tunnels on iOS. I feel like we covered a story like this before, but it was like a GitHub release, like the changelog. So I think this is now like official. Quantum-resistant tunnels are now supported across all operating systems, Linux, Windows, Mac, Android, and now iOS. So how to enable it or verify that it's on? 3 easy steps. Open the app, navigate to Settings, VPN Settings, and Quantum-resistant tunnel, and then ensure the setting is switched on. And if it is switched on, you will notice there's a big green text on the main view that says Quantum Secure Connection.
This is kind of an interesting story here. There were some reported security issues with Matrix's Ohm library, and this is a couple weeks older story that escaped our attention, so we're covering it now. This is a researcher who doesn't consider themselves exceptional, but they stumbled on a few cryptography vulnerabilities in Matrix's Ohm library. And yes, that's Matrix, the protocol that's used for things like Element, and they did this with little effort, and that it was nearly accidental, and it should not be this easy to find these kind of issues in products that people rely on for private messaging, which many people evangelize incorrectly as a Signal alternative. So essentially, they found a vulnerability in the AES implementation, which is vulnerable to cache timing attacks. So ED25519 signatures are malleable, and timing leakage and base64 decoding of private key material, with a lot more technical details in the article to explain what that is, how it works. For all of you who are a little bit more technical, I'm sure you'll really enjoy it. Now, these issues are not fixed in libohm. Instead of fixing libohm, the Matrix team recommends all Matrix clients adopt VotoZMac, however you say that. They can't speak to the security of VotoZMac, but they can speak against the security of libohm. So moving to this is probably a good idea. It was audited by least authority at one point, so it's probably fine.
Our next story is super quick. It comes from Bitwarden. It says, new inline autofill for cards and identities. A lot of people really value the convenience of autofill. So like auto-filling logins. Another example is auto-saving credit cards or auto-saving addresses if they do a lot of online purchases. And as many of you watching know, storing anything in your browser is absolute lunacy. There's a lot of common malware that will steal whatever is stored in the browsers, history, passwords, addresses, credit cards, even authentication sessions so they can log in automatically without needing your password or username. So it's really cool now that you have this like safe alternative to store data in a more robust location, but still enjoy the convenience. And then since that story was so short, I'll go ahead and take this last one from Microsoft, who has donated the Mono project to the Wine team. So for those who don't know, Wine it's a compatibility layer which basically allows you to run Windows programs on Linux. So Mono is a software platform designed to allow developers to easily create cross-platform applications. It is an open source implementation of Microsoft's .NET framework based on the ECMA standards for C# and Common Language Runtime. Microsoft became the steward of the Mono project when it acquired Xamarin in 2016. And here's what they wrote. Microsoft is happy to announce that the Wine HQ organization will be taking over as the stewards of the project upstream at, this is a GitHub link, wine-mono/mono. Source code and existing mono/mono and other repos will remain available, although repos may be archived. Binaries will remain available for up to 4 years. Microsoft maintains a modern fork of Mono runtime in the .NET/runtime repo and has been progressively moving workloads to that fork. That work is now complete, and we recommend that active Mono users and maintainers of the Mono-based apps framework migrate to .NET, which includes work from this fork.
All right, and now the Misfits. So Russian APT29 hackers use iOS and Chrome exploits created by spyware vendors. So this is a hacking group called APT29, and they're using the same iOS and Android exploits created by commercial spyware vendors in a series of cyber attacks between November 2023 and July 2024. This was discovered by Google's threat analysis group, Tag Team, and they said the end-day flaws have already been patched but remain effective on devices that have not been updated. It's unknown how the hackers gained access to the exploits, previously known only to NSO Group and Intellexa. But independently creating their own exploits with the limited information seems unlikely. So the possible explanations include APT29 hacking spyware vendors, which is pretty bad, or they're recruiting or bribing rogue insiders working at those firms, or maintaining a collaboration either directly or via an intermediary. Another possibility is their purchase from a vulnerability broker who previously sold them to surveillance companies as 0 days. No matter how these exploits reach sophisticated state-backed threat groups, the key issue is that they do. This makes it even more critical to promptly address 0-day vulnerabilities labeled as under limited scope exploitation in advisories. Far more urgent than mainstream users might realize.
And that is all we had for the week. So Pavel Durov, Telegram CEO, has been arrested. And like I said, that is an evolving situation. We will keep you updated as the situation develops. Expect that one to take quite a while, as legal cases often do. Firefox is improving privacy for the users. Always a win, regardless. And Zitter, Twitter X, is officially banned in Brazil, and there's some heavy restrictions on VPNs. Again, we'll keep you updated mostly on the VPN side of things if we hear anything about how they plan to enforce it or if they lift that, so on and so forth. So again, we want to thank JMP.Chat for sponsoring us. And again, we want to encourage you guys, if you have not heard of them, or if you have heard of them but you haven't checked them out, again, especially if you're an Android user, this is a fully open source, free and open source service that provides phone numbers which are capable of SMS, MMS, short codes, and more. So not just phone calls. Again, it is interoperable with various apps, various different servers, various different OSs and devices.
Even desktop.
Yeah. I didn't try the calls, but I did log in on desktop and I checked the messages, and we recommend starting with the Chiagram app, but again, interoperable with a lot of apps. There's pay-as-you-go data to respect your privacy. And again, there is now an eSIM adapter. So if you're one of those people who's like, I'm using an eSIM or I have data only, still definitely worth checking out. And I still wanted to give some love to our patrons who support us on Patreon and LibrePay or Send Monero. We really do appreciate you guys for helping us get this far and continuing to support us.
The reason that we're able, because we've already got some sponsorship offers and we haven't actually said yes to all of them, is because we have the security of having our patrons and other supporters. And so if you only have one source of income, that one source of income actually in many ways can influence what you're doing.
Thank you for those who have been supporting us. You're what got us here. We're definitely not forgetting that. We're not going to start chasing down every sponsorship out there. We're really excited about JMP.Chat. I was really impressed. I'm a big fan. You guys are what allow us to only take the sponsorships that align with our values and that we really feel comfortable recommending to you guys. So thank you. And thank you for listening to the podcast. Links to all the stories can be found in the show notes. If you have a story that you think we should cover, please send it to news@surveillancereport.tech. And the last thing we want to ask, as always, share the podcast around. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this. Give us a rating if you're on a platform where that's an option. We're trying to reach as many people as possible with privacy, and sharing that around is definitely the best way to do that. We also have the Surveillance Clips channel, where we have some of the more widely applicable stories in like a short clip format. Thank you guys for all your support, and we will see you next week.